Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to Beyond the Hashtag.
You are now locked into the Beyond the Hashtag podcast.
Hashtag BTH Pod.
I'm your host, Stephen. We are back with another interview, another special episode. I hope you loved the last episode that we did with Kick It Out's Troy Townsend. If you haven't, click the link below and check it out. It's in two parts. It was an amazing conversation we had. And yeah, moving on with the interviews today, we are here and joined by ex-Portsmouth, Stoke, Carlisle and Juventus footballer Vincent Pericard. Vincent, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Stephen, for having me in your podcast. I feel honored.
It's all good. It's all good. No, the pleasure's all ours. So yeah, Vincent, we're going to speak to you about a number of different topics about your experiences and some of the things going on today in the football scene. But I want to just start with just an introduction about how are you? How's you're obviously retired now, so how are your life experiences going at the moment, and what are you up to?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So at the moment, I'm speaking to you and to everyone from Bali. I know it's kind of like weird, and people first reaction is, how did you manage to get there? Shouldn't he be in lockdown
in a pandemic?
in London and like all of us? No, and that's actually another topic. How did I manage that? But overall, I'm having the time of my life despite the circumstances. But yes, I do appreciate that we're going through a kind of sad, frustrating moment with limited traveling, and freedom has been taken away. But I'm trying to make the most of it because that's something I've learned in the last 10 years, is to really enjoy what's good, celebrate the wins as even as small as they are. That's what really adds up to happiness. So I'm still working for BT, same company as you, and I'm working from here. So I'm managing to kind of like still work English hour from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., which means that during the day I can go to the gym, I can go to the nice places and chill with my girlfriends. So I'm having a good balance. So I think for me, I'm still in kind of like transition phase from my football career to be in a corporate world, but also, getting to know myself, because I am a different person as a human being, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And Bali, for those that have been there and that know there, is all about, what's fascinating here is like kind of like a personal development place, and they call it like conscious people. It's all about getting to know yourself and really understanding who you are, what's your trauma, what made you who you are. So yeah, I'm going through a massive growth stage, but I'm loving it. I feel very blessed. I'm very grateful, and again, this is just another opportunity for me to remind myself that I am lucky, and you're giving me an opportunity to share my experience, share my knowledge, and maybe remembering some of our good time during football.
No, I'm happy to hear your work-life balance. It sounds is very high level at the moment. With I don't think you can get a better chill time than going swimming in the forest in Bali and all the kind of things. So I'm sure we're all very jealous. But I wanted to move on and take things back a bit to the start. So looking at your youth experiences. So you grew up in France, but you're of Cameroonian heritage. So I guess the first question, I know France has a lot of links with Africa and a lot of African countries, especially West Africa. So how did your Cameroonian heritage play a part in your in your growing up in France, and how was your growing up in France in general?
Yeah, so I was extremely fortunate to be able to move from Cameroon to France when I was just 4 years old. My mom married a French citizen, and then they brought me over. So I see that as my first big break, blessing from, the God or the universe, however you want to call it. It was kind of like a massive piece of luck.
Yeah.
So coming to France, I couldn't speak French, but I quickly adapted. Being four, your brain is like a sponge. So you learn the language, the culture, you get integrated, you settle very, very quickly. And for me, I didn't know nothing about football until when I was 5. My stepfather took me for a walk, and it happened. We walked past the main stadium, which was Saint-Etienne. Platini played there, Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the coaches saw me and said, "Hey, Vincent, or you, do you fancy kicking a ball?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And I kicked the ball. Like I said, never seen a ball before. I didn't know what was football, and I didn't know how big it was, and what you could become.
Yeah.
I just, like a little boy, something to kick. I'm gonna kick it.
Yeah.
So I fully enjoyed it. And then the coach after that said, "Oh, do you want to come back tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" Not thinking much. So I came back the next day, and then the next day, the next day, the next day, and the rest is history. Exactly. So I think my Cameroon heritage has been very useful to in France, and obviously I need to be careful what I'm going to say next is because I don't want to stereotype. But I think at that age, for me, being Africans, had physical capability that was above Western players. I was already, taller, stronger, faster, which made me stand out, a little bit more among my peer. So that kind of gave me an advantage. But obviously, there were other kind of side effect of, being the only African or black, the only black person at school, which, I've been bullied and discriminated against, which has us affecting me. So, my Cameroon heritage had pros and cons, but looking back now with insight, will be grateful for, everything that he has brought me in terms of, having a rich culture, having, the physical attribute that, really helped me to, be so strong and play in Premier League and all those, amazing leagues in the world. But it was, it has been, it was a great blessing to be in France and to grow up in France, to learn French and to learn another culture and, really establish myself here. And with all that without forgetting where I'm coming from.
No, 100%. And yeah, I think that maintaining that sort of that African heritage is strong, especially when like a lot of people like not necessarily myself because I was born here, but even I identify quite closely with my Ghanaian heritage, and I know a lot of my people around me identify with where our parents come from and things like that, and that plays a massive part in our day-to-day culture and how we manifest ourselves in a country such as UK, France, wherever we are in Europe or the rest of the world, America. So yeah, I think it's important to remember where we come from if you want to
exactly like that. Yes.
Yeah. But obviously sad to hear that you experienced that discrimination from an early age in France. But I guess I want to take it forward a little bit, and maybe this will lead to a bigger scale in terms of when you went to Italy, because I know you started your playing career at Juventus. So I guess how starting on the football side of things, how was the football side in terms of adapting to Italy, moving from France, and then I guess afterwards we can move into if you experienced any racism after that. But yeah, let's start with the football.
Yeah, so from a football perspective, like I said, I literally just dropped into football by luck. I didn't know what it was. My parents had no precondition that we want Vincent to become a professional footballer, so we're going to invest everything in him in order to become that. So I had no idea. However, I've been extremely lucky to progress through the rank without any kind of challenging or major resistance. Like I said, my physical attributes really helped me, but obviously I had a natural talent in terms of having the football brains and being able to anticipate, player movement and scoring goals. So, I had that natural talent, which then led me to have my first professional contract at Saint-Etienne when I was just 17 at Saint-Etienne. And I was also playing for the French under 17, under 21. And again, that was already a moment of proudness in my career because I was representing France, national and well-known and respected. But I was still obvious of, what kind of achievement I was already making. I was like, yeah, I'm playing for France. So what? And then the next thing I know is I've got an agent coming to me and said, oh, by the way, Vincent, Juventus are interested in you. And you're probably going to laugh. And I was like, who's Juventus? Oh, okay, well, let's go have a look.
Yeah, let's see what they have to offer.
Yeah. And I literally went there next day and they have offered me a contract, which I couldn't believe. I was like, wow. And if I need to, just to add some context on that, I came from an African family, which we were very poor. And for me, I remember just looking at my friends going to school, being able to buy themselves some, boulangerie, pain au chocolat, that kind of little things. And I couldn't because I didn't want that money. But suddenly, I went from no salary to a massive salary, and I could buy myself as many as I want.
Yeah.
Everything. So that kind of transition to Juventus was beautiful, because then again I realized even more so now that I was joining the like of Zinedine Zidane, Buffon, the manager was Lippi, Ancelotti, Edgar Davids, those household names that I didn't know at that time, but now I realized, they were world class. And for me, I was just a 18-year-old, prodigy that was identified as to be the big things. But I was still like, innocent, very hungry, and very like, willing to just go there and get stuck in. I couldn't speak Italian, but I didn't care. I just went there, like I said, took my bag, signed my contract. They gave me a flat, training next day, took some Italian lessons, scoring goals, and learning and really having fun. So that was kind of my transition from a football perspective, from France to Italy, from being a teenager to still be a teenager, but now a teenager with a lot of money and a lot of more visibility. That was still a major step up.
No, 100%. And even I'm sure most people will be amazed to hear like those household names that you played with. These are people legends that people have framed up everywhere, and you started your career with them at the age of 18 pretty much, which is being thrown into the limelight that quickly is amazing. I'm sure we could probably speak forever about the football side of things and move through all your career with the various clubs, etc. But I think the aim of this podcast, especially with the racism topic, and we know unfortunately that Italy, amongst other countries in Europe, so we won't single out Italy, but Italy especially in terms of high profile cases has had quite a lot of incidents of racism with fans, players, and things like that. So I guess from a player perspective, during your time in Italy, I wanted to know if you experienced any direct or indirect racism. So direct would be if somebody has obviously abused you, whether that's fans, a teammate, or opponent, etc., or coach. Or an indirect, I guess, would be microaggressions, like maybe people framing things as banter, or you feeling like you didn't get any certain opportunities because of your race, things like that. How was that experience in Italy?
Yeah, so in Italy, I remember, so in terms of direct discriminations, there has been just maybe one or two occasions. And I consider myself extremely lucky to have only been subject to that many, because I obviously heard and seen other my friends that it was more frequent. But for me, it was one or twice. And it was more specifically around monkey chants and throwing bananas. And I remember that time, because for me, whilst discrimination and racism, I kind of felt it at school, I wasn't told what it is, what it looked like. So I just was thinking people are just mean and stupid. I didn't understand that they were actually attacking me because of the color of my skin. So I kind of like didn't fully react, didn't fully get angry, because I didn't know what it meant. If I knew then what I know now, it would have probably hurt me more, because I would have known that they're actually attacking me for no reason. So that was kind of like a direct, but the things that impacted me even more, if I remember correctly, it was more indirect. And because he came from a teammate. That's why it was so hurtful. And I remember profoundly that, because I was only 18, 19, I was playing between the first team, the professional Zidane and all that, but also the reserve, which we call the Primavera at that time. And in the reserve, they were a lot less mature. They were more immature, they were just young like me. And I remember like they will have some kind of like click within the team of Italian, and the way they will look at me and my colleague, they were also black, you could feel it was from a discrimination from point of view, because we are black, because we had different feature, and because we are in Italy, in their country. So for them, they saw us as foreigner, but as teammates, they're like, Why is he doing it? What are they doing there? We should be, being picked above them. Or if we lost a game or we made a mistake, is because of them and because they're black. And I remember feeling that, when you look at someone in the eyes, you know them, but you can just see in their eyes that they're looking at you is because you're different. You're like a virus. You're like a foreigner. And that makes you feel very uncomfortable, especially in a very close environment, such as a changing room, where we all sat each other. We all feel like tight, but yet you feel like you shouldn't be there. So that's the kind of injury discrimination I felt in Italy, and it was heartbreaking. But again, I think I was lucky not to fully comprehend what was going on, because if I did, then emotionally it would have been harder, more painful, and my behavior would have probably been more aggressive and not as pleasant.
Yeah, it's crazy that actually your ignorance at that time actually helped you, and I think that's a lot of the cases with young people, and especially like I guess nowadays with say children, because they don't understand what racism is, and they don't understand the severity of how much it affects them. So if you have, let's say, two 5-year-olds, and one's a white child is doing monkey noises to a black child, the black child won't really, they'll just think, they might be offended by it, but they won't understand that level of it. But if now as adults someone does it to us, the scale of emotion just goes times 100, which is
because we know what it means. And I think for me, what I really realized is that if we don't change the narrative, that behavior is going to keep impacting the generations. Next generation is never going to stop. And at that time, when I was young, I just really was just like, it's just being stupid, but I didn't realize actually it has to change.
No, 100%. So moving forward to your career in England, because you played for a number of clubs in England, especially most notably Stoke under Tony Pulis, etc. Those kind of things that people will recognise. But how did your life change coming to England, both from a bit of a footballing perspective, but again keeping on with the racism topic of that indirect or direct racism that you feel compared to your experiences in Italy?
Yeah, good question. So moving on from Italy to England, so I think it has changed mainly in one perspective, which is none of the football. So I'll start with a football perspective and the discrimination racism. Unfortunately, I will have to say that it didn't change from what I said earlier in the injury discrimination for my teammates in Italy. It was the same in England, and I felt that quite early. Upon my arrival in England in my first 2-3 years, it still felt like, I wasn't fully seen as equal, similar as everyone else. The English player will look at me not as a French player, but more like as a Black Africans, which therefore, shouldn't be there. Or if he is there, then, he has to justify himself why he's there and why is he bringing, which then, it just made me feel that I had to get validation from people when I didn't need to, therefore putting more pressure on myself just because I was present.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of like lasted 2-3 years, not constant, but there was always some element of, that will remember me that, I'm Black, therefore I'm different or I'm wrong. And that kind of spurred me to really get involved with Kick It Out, which is spoken to Troy Townsend, and I worked directly with him to really, change the narrative and do something. And whilst I was working or supporting Kick It Out, I did it in the role of professional player representation. So my role was to chair a committee of football players, which then I will voice their concern to the lack of Kick It Out board, the FA, the Premier League, and the PFA. So that was a proud moment for me to really represent all professional football players from the Premier League to the lowest league in terms of, this is how we feel. We're fed up of that. This has to change. And I feel very passionate with that because, I went through that. I can relate. And that's something, like I said, now I had more awareness, understanding of the impact he has and the damage he can do. I want to change it. I don't want to be a bystander
Bystander,
anymore.
yeah.
And yeah, and just be like, yeah, that's okay. So from that perspective, discrimination between Italy and England didn't change a lot, and it was still harmful. But what really changed from a more personal perspective, well, actually, there's something that has changed in football as well. And this is not related to discrimination, but more like the style of
So,
football.
yeah.
Italy is very much like tactics, slow, pass the ball from left to right, and all that. Obviously, in England now is more like that, but
Yeah.
20 years ago it was more like long ball, jump, flick, run,
Big
especially Tony
striker, yeah.
Pulis. Exactly, and I was like, "What the hell is that? Like, that's not how I've been taught." So I
Mm.
really struggled there. But from a more personal side of things, and that's why I fell in love with England is, how people are just open-minded, how they show some energy of freedom, and when I see people interested, it feels like it's equal opportunity.
Mm.
If you got something about it, if you grind, if you work hard, you will get the opportunity. In Italy, it's all about who you know, connection, being part of a
Hmm.
mafia, being part of that. And doesn't matter how good you are, if you're not part of a gang, you're not gonna make it.
Yeah.
Where in England, it's more like, if you're worth it, doesn't matter who you are, your color of your skin, your religion, we will give you a chance, we will give you an opportunity. And another things that I love about England is, the English banter, and it's just how fun things are. And that's how I fell in love. And, when my first loan spell at Portsmouth ended, and Juventus wanted me to go back and stay with them. I said, no, I want to stay in England. And I signed a 3 years contract for Portsmouth Football Club with Harry Redknapp. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. No, that's and I'm happy that you can still resonate. And I think that spirit of football in England will never leave. In terms of the banter and how passionate people are, and that kind of thing. I guess continuing on with the racism theme, and especially with your role that you had, linking the players to organizations such as Kick It Out. If we bring it right forward to the present day, in 2021, even as recently as this week and last week, of recording this video, we've seen a lot of highlighted incidents of racist abuse on social media with a number of different professional players, especially in the Premier League. Recently we've had
Mm,
Tan Zabi from Man United. We've had Reece James and his sister Lauren James. So many incidents that are more highlighted recently, even though they probably happen on a daily basis. So there's been
yeah.
a big talking point about how to deal with social media abuse, especially from a racism
Mm.
perspective. So I guess what would be your views on like how you would have dealt with that as a player if you were still playing, and secondly, perhaps a solution that would potentially come to mind for dealing with racist abuse in the form of social media, because I guess now it's changed from your day where there was none around.
Yeah, there wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, this is a big question. Because obviously, we've been trying to tackle discriminations in football or in every other kind of like area for years, and unfortunately, I coming to understand it's never going to go away. But that doesn't mean we should give up a fight. We should
Hmm.
always be standing and doing our best to make sure that we bring equality everywhere. So what I would say at this moment in time around social media is I think I've seen that in a very good way from Sterling's in Manchester City is very vocal, and the way he speaks, it feels very much like independence from his club, from everyone. He speaks from his own voice, and he feels like he's not scripted, he's not directed from his agents or anyone, and that feels authentic to me, and that feels like wow, inspiring. So I would encourage any black player, out there to use their social platform, their social media power to really stand against any kind of discriminations, because what that's going to do is that's going to create a momentum. It's going to inspire younger players or younger people, maybe in terms of fans, or maybe that just people that work in different walk of life, that they're going to see that discrimination is not okay, being racist is not okay, bullying someone based on the color of their skin is not okay. And it is in galvanizing those emotions, those views, those people, that we are eventually going to change the tide or we're gonna, maintain that position where, people will always try to discriminate, but as as a mass of people believing this is wrong, we will stand against it.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we will be working with, those social networks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, where they will feel like pressure that they need to install policy and rules which will, limit or filter that kind of behavior. And then we will get the government involved, governing body. So I think it will be, a joint movement led by the player that is going to create an environment where it make it harder and harder for people with discriminatory view to be heard or, influence the narrative out there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, do you find it almost empowering that, so for example, in your day, if players had incidents, they would, let's say, have to liaise with someone like you, and then you would have to go to Kick It Out to present these views and etc. But now, as a player, if someone does something to me last night, I can write a statement on my Twitter tomorrow morning and tell
Absolutely.
everyone what's happened. Yeah, like, do you feel the empowerment that footballers have now, that with social media, that it brings?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that a player can, directly go on social media and doesn't have to have authorization from no one is empowering and more powerful than if he has to go through his agents or other layers of people to have his voice heard. Because one of the things, or one of the reasons black players at my time were discouraged or didn't feel like talking is because we felt like whatever we say is going to be either filtered out, changed, or not heard, because it's going to go through so many people that eventually is going to be hitting a door that someone is not going to carry that message. But now we can cut out all those middlemen and go straight to the social media and broadcast how we feel, what is not okay with us, what change we want, and engage in the conversations, which we believe that will bring changes, because everything is happened, everything is visible, and no one wants to have those bad conversations in the public eyes.
Yeah, 100%. That no filter, I can just say what I want. It is there, and you can't kind of crowd out my voice from anything and my experience, which is a very, very powerful thing to have. Vincent, that's slowly all we've got time for, but I just wanted to finish with a bit more about yourself and kind of what life looks like in 2021, and talk a bit to us about what's up, if people don't know.
Yeah. So just to kind of conclude, I've retired from football when I was 29. Hit rock bottom as soon as I retired. Then I decided, what do I want to do? Who I want to become? So I went for university, got degrees, and I'm in a corporate world working with BT, and I'm really enjoying that transitions. I'm really working on myself, discovering who I am, what matters to me, but also what kind of things I want to share back in terms of learning around discrimination. So thank you for giving me the opportunity again. But another big topic that I feel very passionate about is around mental health and well-being, because this is one of the key factors that prevented me fulfilling my potential as a professional football player. As I said earlier, when I was 18, I was playing with the like of Zinedine Zidane, best club in the world, Champions League. Just 10 years later, I was forced to retire playing non-league football. And the reason for that, it was poor mental health. Mm-hmm. And that's why I created my setup now, which is called WhatsApp. And that came from my own experience that, I've been suffering of depression throughout my career, but I couldn't speak out in terms of I wasn't feeling okay. If someone asked me, are you okay today, Vincent? How are you? I'd be like, yes, I'm okay. But really, I wasn't. And hey, Vincent, what's up? What my company does is through an app, it gives you opportunity to really say how you are without feeling the fear to be judged or being, seen as a weak person, but it gives you opportunity to start that conversation that will lead you to recovery and eventually fulfill your potential because your mental health is being managed.
No, that's amazing, and I'm sure we'll put the details of how to get in touch with the WhatsApp app in the bio below, and people can definitely get in touch with you. Also, I'm sure we can leave your social media details in the description below for people to get in contact with you and just talk more about your experiences and what we've spoken about on the podcast today. So yeah, Vincent, I just thank you once again for joining us. It's been a very, very poignant discussion and very, very powerful. And I'm lucky and had the pleasure to listen to your experiences, and also on a personal level had the chance to meet and work with you outside of this as well. So thank you once again for coming on.
Thank you, Steve. Honor is mine. You're doing a great job, and you are part of changing the narrative around discrimination. So you're doing a great job. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to speaking to all your audience and whenever they want.
Thank you so much. Yeah, listeners, if you have any feedback for this episode, then again you can contact the Beyond the Hashtag socials, which will be in the description. Let us know how the Vincent discussion went. Look back on the Troy Townsend discussion, and also comment below any future ex-footballers, any future people within the anti-discrimination world you'd like us to get on the podcast. But for now, I've been your host, Stephen, and I'll see you very soon. Stay blessed.
Hashtag BTH Pod.